Hello and welcome back to the Us Three podcast. It's been a while, lads.
Long time.
What we were saying, we've missed last week's because we were out and we were just enjoying finishing exams.
Enjoying the Euros as well.
And it's been 3 weeks today since we last filmed because we bulk recorded a lot for exams. Because we thought we'd take that break over exams. But before that, we also said that we wanted to do like a mental health awareness episode. So that is what we're doing today. We've got Andrew here on the screen because you haven't noticed there's someone on the screen. We've got Andrew Murnane from TikTok, and he's here to talk with us through the topics of mental health and various issues and stuff that he talks about on TikTok. Because if you haven't checked his TikTok out, go check it out. It'll be in the description, top line. But we just wanted to talk about various topics of mental health, and I've got a feeling this is probably going to be a very, very good episode.
Now you said
I said that.
Now it has to be.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be.
But
No pressure around you, mate. Come on,
we'll get right into it. So Andrew, in terms of yourself then, you put a very, I'd say, heartwarming content out onto TikTok, or motivational content out onto TikTok. What made you want to put that out there and put that out for people to observe? Because it's something that a lot of people need and a lot of people like to see when it comes up on their For You page. And sometimes it even comes up by chance. I remember when we were doing prep for this podcast, your videos had come up on my For You page before, and as soon as I was looking through, I was like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that, and I remember how good it makes you feel. So yeah, what made you want to put that out onto TikTok?
So I think my journey of figuring out some of the stuff spiritually and mentally, things that have helped me, started back in high school, sort of. That's like the beginning of it, because I used to experience a lot of just social anxiety and things like that, and worried a lot, was rarely living in the present moment, just always worried about what if scenarios in the future, what people thought of me, just I think typical stuff that a lot of people deal with. And I got to a point probably 3-4 years ago that I was still kind of feeling like this all the time, and I thought there's got to be a better way to live. There's got to be a way to not feel like this all the time. So I started reading some books. I read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. To this day, one of my favorite books. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson is another really good one. And those kind of opened up my eyes. After reading them both a couple times, it took me a few tries to get through and really grasp what they were saying. So those began to help me. I started getting more into meditation and just learning different things to keep in mind, and realize that, the present moment's the only thing we ever have. That internal dialogue that I hear all the time, that voice in my head, isn't actually my voice. I'm just the awareness, the one that can hear it, so you're able to take it a little bit less seriously. And then as I began learning these things, I started to feel much better. And then about 1 to 2 years ago, I started going through this exercise, and I forget if I heard it somewhere or it's just kind of evolved for myself. But basically every morning I imagine being really old. I post this sort of scenarios like this on TikTok before. Just imagine being 100 years old and lying in a hospital bed, really feel myself fit. Spend a couple minutes feeling like I'm old and wrinkly, close to death. And then I think, what do I regret about my life? And for a good, probably close to 2 years, I did that every morning. And the thing that came up every single day was that I didn't create the content. I didn't share all the things that I learned. I had interests outside of mental health related things like physical health, financial related stuff like that. And so every day I, had that come up, and finally, and I still wasn't posting content because I was worried about how people were going to judge me, what people were going to say, was I even going to be good at it? And finally I just got to a point that I was I fucking know that I'm going to regret this. What the fuck am I still doing? Thinking about it, and just pull the trigger, and that's how I started.
So then take us back to, you also talked about high school at the start there, and you said about the social anxiety and things like that. How bad was that at that point? If you can maybe think of a point where things were at its toughest, and how worried you were about the society. If you just guide us through that.
Yeah. Basically in high school I was super, super quiet. I didn't want to make waves. It wasn't even that I wanted everyone to like me. It was I didn't want anyone to dislike me. So I just wouldn't even put myself out. I wasn't being my true self. And it was I was quiet externally, I wasn't talking much, but my mind was loud as fuck. And I didn't even realize that stream of thought was something that I identified with so closely. Like I thought that voice in my head was my voice, and I wasn't able to disassociate from my mind until years later. And so it would manifest in ways of just like, being very quiet, getting super nervous about presentations, like having to put myself out there and, be in front of people. And it's like, they're all watching you. So it's like, they're inevitably going to have thoughts about it when, in reality, they're probably just like sitting there doing whatever, looking at their phones or worrying about how people are going to perceive them when they get up to present. So it's almost like most of the time people aren't judging you as much as you think, but it manifested in ways like that. Just like really being nervous about putting myself out there, and even in like day-to-day things, talking and speaking in public, stuff like that.
And how did that then impact your life kind of behind closed doors? So obviously you have like this public image of yourself, but I mean like privately at home, like how did that impact you or as a person, like maybe with your family, just or in your bedroom, just day-to-day things?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've never really thought of that back then. It was always like, being in school, being out wherever, like I never felt it around my family as much. I think it definitely didn't allow me to be as happy doing things. And even like in private, like I've always had social media stuff. I post on Instagram, pic with some of my friends here and there, but I wasn't like putting myself out there like I do now and sharing things. And there was always this hesitation before I post anything, like, oh, like what are these people going to think of this? What is that person going to think of this? And it was like this slight hesitation, even when I would end up posting something, like, ooh, like worrying about how many likes it was going to get. And at some point, like about a year ago, that like slight hesitation just kind of went away, and that was what kind of happened simultaneously with me deciding, like, fuck it, I'm just going to start posting stuff, posting more content, and it helps a ton when you're posting content, as I'm sure you guys know, that like just putting out mass quantities of content is the best way to grow and to grow your page and whatever. So getting rid of that slight hesitation, which was probably something I felt, as you mentioned, in private more so, and just that constant worry, constant stream thinking. Once that went away, it opened up the doors for me to just like be free to post anything, and it's clearly helped at least a few people.
So you did like I saw you took like was it a 10-day break from social media, something like that? Was it 10 days or was it a week or something?
Yeah.
I mean, so what are your kind of views on social media and how it impacts your life? Do you think it has a positive effect, a negative effect, a bit of both? Like, how do you think social media really does affect us?
Yeah. I think it's a tool that is nice to use, but once you realize that it's using you and you're having a tough time, turning it off, especially as a creator, it can be very difficult because it is, where you're doing things. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily my job, but it became a thing that I was, I really enjoyed it, but it was almost like, so basically what led up to me taking that break, I'll just back up a little bit, was when I started posting on TikTok. It was back in like July, August of 2020, and I was posting fairly regularly. Like I was growing a decent amount, got up to like 40,000 followers in a few months, and then in October, November, I had set these goals of hitting like 50,000 followers by end of October, and then I wanted to hit like 100,000 followers by the end of the year. And these numerical goals. So what happened was when it came to the end of October, I wasn't at 50,000, I was at like 40,000. My growth slowed quite a bit. So it almost like made me not as excited because I didn't hit that goal, and it caused me to take a little bit of a break. Like I just wasn't as amped about it as I was previously. And then come towards the end of November, I realized that like me setting these numerical goals was holding me to the standard, and those numerical goals, like gaining followers, is a goal that's outside of my control. Like I can't control someone tapping the follow button. Like the only thing I can control is how much content I put out and the quality of content that I put out. So end of November, I sort of realized this, and I shifted my goal from numbers of followers to simply posting one TikTok a day and going live for at least 10 minutes a day. And I did that from end of November through February into March. And I grew a lot. I grew to like 150, 160,000, and it just happened because I was focused on, the things I could control. But you mentioned the break that I took. It got to a point that because I'm a relatively disciplined person, it was harder for me to like take a break on a day that like maybe I wasn't feeling it and just not post something because it had become so ingrained in me that like I wouldn't feel good if I didn't make that post and like kind of let myself down. And I found that I was just so consumed and always like, on TikTok, on Instagram, responding to DMs, responding to comments, going live, knowing those things are going to help me grow. But I was neglecting the things that were actually happening around me, and like being with friends and family. I was finding myself just so enthralled in this, and it's kind of ironic and hypocritical because I'm preaching, things like how being present is so important. It's the only thing we ever have, and yet here I was, posting all this stuff and being so engulfed in social media that I was like, oh fuck, like I'm not being present in my own life.
Yeah.
Like who am I to preach this stuff if I can't even do it myself? And so luckily I was able to realize that. Like I kind of had a little bit, it wasn't like an extreme breakdown, but I was just talking to my parents, just telling them how overwhelmed I felt with it, and got pretty emotional. And then I realized like I just need a break. And so I decided one day I was going to delete TikTok and Instagram, not think about them for at least a week, maybe longer. And it was funny because I deleted them, and then I felt like a physical weight lift off my shoulders. Yeah. And I didn't realize how much emotional output I was giving, and until I actually deleted them, I felt like significantly better. So that's kind of the story behind me going off for 10 days. And I was able to be more present in my life and come back.
How much would you say, because I've sort of myself, I've maybe overthink like a bit, worry a bit, and trying to change like your day-to-day routines to sort of help yourself, like you say, deleting social media or waking up, like you said, every day for 2 years thinking you're 100 years old, that kind of thing. How hard would you say is it to sort of switch to that sort of mindset day in, day out? Because for me, on like say a Sunday night, I'll get like so much motivation to push on through the week and say Monday is really productive. But then from then on, it sort of just peters out, and by Friday, I'm not doing any work or anything like that. How hard would you say it is to sort of make that switch to make sure it's present in sort of every routine that you have every day?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think when it comes to routines, I think people say it takes like 3 weeks to build a habit. I think it's like 3 weeks to a month. And that is during that 3 weeks to a month, it's not going to be super easy to do. You're not going to always feel like doing it, but by pushing through and doing it anyway, eventually there will be a shift to where it's almost like more difficult to not do those things.
Yeah.
And I think like I'm more of a morning person. I wake up early, I get through like working out, meditating, manifesting, going through scenarios, whatever, early in the morning. And because I know myself, even though I enjoy working out, if I don't work out in the morning and I say I'm going to work out later in the afternoon, like, I don't know, half the time I end up not working out. Yeah. Even though I enjoy working out, I know how healthy it is for me, like, I need to do that in the morning to get it done with. And the things that, even though it's not something I don't like doing, it just makes it so much easier once it's done. And then when it comes to motivation, I like you brought that up, because a lot of times people will think they're a little bit confused about how motivation works. They think that like, you want to do something, you're just going to feel motivated and then go do it. So like you're sitting on the couch and you're like, I don't feel like going to the gym. I'm just going to wait till I feel motivated and then I'll go. But when it comes to motivation, that process is actually like the feeling of motivation is not the first thing that's going to happen. The first thing is like you have to take action. You just have to like fucking force yourself to do it. Yeah. And then you'll garner some sort of results, and then you'll feel more motivated to continue taking action. But action is going to be the first step. So like if you're not feeling motivated, just like doing something and breaking down whatever you want to accomplish into like a smaller goal, like just putting your gym clothes on or like driving to the gym instead of setting a goal like working out, can help you at least get there. And then you'll like feel better once you're there, and then you'll feel more motivated, and that's sort of how the cycle goes, at least in my experience.
I mean, so it's this idea, so what you said, this idea of kind of little wins, the fact that you can't go from 1 to 3, you have to have 2 in the middle, right? So you have to have those little things. And I want to just go back a little bit with the fact that there's so much kind of that, so much unpacked with that social media bit. And I think one of the things that came up was this idea of like focusing on the things you can and can't control, right? Because so many people, like, in life, you want things to go right, but sometimes you've got to realize you can't control those things. So how important do you believe it is to really realise that, you know what, sometimes in life you just need to focus on things you can control, and that those things will impact the things that you can't control, and sometimes you just kind of got to hope for the best.
Yeah, definitely. I think the realization that you actually control very little is very helpful for a lot of people. Like, there's this illusion of control when, like, you know, some believe that control is a complete illusion and, like, you don't almost have hardly any control. I think, you know, you do have a bit of control, and when things, you know, you said, like, there's so many things that happen in the world that are out of your control, and what you can't control is, you know, how you react to things and things that you can do in response to certain things. So, like, you know, something, you know, objectively bad or subjectively bad may happen to you, and it's not something you can't, like, get so worked up about that thing, because one, it's already happened. So, like, the next step is how you're going to react to it, and that is something that is in your control. So just understanding that, you know, that understanding of control can be very beneficial, because so many people are out there trying to control everything, and when it doesn't go the way that they, you know, want it to, or that they think it should go, they get all, like, out of sorts, and all of a sudden their day is fucked.
How do you get to that understanding? How do you get to that point where you can understand about the things you can and can't control? Like, how did you do it, and how do you think it's best to get there?
That's a good question. I don't know necessarily if there's, like, a process getting there besides just realizing that there isn't much, you know, like, thinking about everything going on in the world that people get worked up about, like, you know, the weather, traffic, how your boss is treating you, whatever. Like, those things are, for the most part, out of your control. And a quote I really like to keep in mind is, can't change it. So, like, if there's something that happens and it's already happened, or it's happening right now, like, that realization that your only option is accepting it and then moving forward to something else. Also, like, realizing that acceptance is almost always the first step in any situation, because resistance only causes, like, more friction, which causes whatever you're feeling or whatever situation is going on to, like, continue in that way. Like, when you resist persists. So, like, that acceptance is so key, and accepting the fact that there's very little that you can control can actually be very freeing and allow you to control almost more, or be able to control more, because you're relinquishing control of everything that you know that you can't.
You know, when you said there, when you, just to link it back to motivation, when you said that obviously there's things that you can control and things you can't, and when those things that you can't control don't go your way, because it does happen, it happens in life when the things you control don't go your way, how do you stay motivated in terms of when those things don't go your way? Do you use the fact that potentially it's because of, it's a factor that you can't control, and use that as almost like, well, you know, it happens to everyone? Or how would you say that you personally would stay motivated, and how would you say that you've learned to stay motivated as well during those times?
It's a good question. I think I don't know how much I've thought about that specifically, but I think when it comes to, like, you know, not getting down or worked up, like, going back to that acceptance, just, like, accepting what happened instead of, because a lot of times when something doesn't go right, people, like, dwell on it, you know, think about what they could have done differently, and it's like, that's already in the past. Like, that's already a memory that only lives in your mind. Like, what's going on right now is the only thing happening, and it's the only thing ever happening. So realizing that, you're able to move on a little bit quicker, realizing that, like, those thoughts going on in your head is the only thing that keeps past situations around. So understanding that moving forward is basically the only option, or at least, you know, the only logical option, when you're able to, you know, take a step back and sort of disidentify from those thoughts about it, and just take from it what you can, learn from it, and apply it to scenarios moving forward, I think is typically
I mean, that's something that I always said, my mum has always said, it's kind of like, at the end of the day, things are going to go wrong in life, and those things are in the past, but you just got to learn from those moments, and you've got to help those moments to help shape your future almost. So how important would you say it is to learn from those past experiences and kind of not let them define you as a person, but let them help to who you want to be and help to be or progressing to be?
Yeah, I mean, people say things like you either win or you learn, there's no fail. I think that's definitely applicable. I think it's definitely true. And the other thing, you said when things go wrong, I think people get tied up into very, very, very short-term thinking a lot of the time, and they think that they know what's right and wrong. When in reality, like something may happen to you, something may happen in your life that seems really bad in that moment, but down the road, it could end up being something really good, like just something in my own life. As I mentioned in high school, experiencing a lot of social anxiety, worry, like I naturally am kind of a worrier, like I get nervous about stuff, and I think it's pretty normal to feel that way in certain situations. But if I had never gone through that, if I had just like never gotten nervous, never gotten worried, I would have never started posting stuff on social media to share and try to help other people, because I would have no idea of what it's like to experience that. So I wouldn't be able to even know what it's like. So I wouldn't be able to, connect with those people who do follow me and say, like, I know how that feels. And these are the things that have helped me figuring they may help you. So like, when things go wrong, they may not actually be as wrong as you think, and everything that happens to you, just realizing that everything is perfectly aligned in the scheme of the universe to push you to your highest self, realizing that can help you not take every little thing in a short-term type mindset, thinking that like, this is wrong, this is right, and I know, because at the end of the day, you may not for, 10 years.
Is it this idea then of seeing the long term? With the fact that, not to always look and view in the short term of, oh, this has happened, this is going to ruin the next couple of days. Is the idea that this happened, but this could really help me in a month or 2 months or even years down the line? Like, how important is it to look at things in the long term and not necessarily in the short term?
Yeah, I think, and something I just thought of is like, live in the present, but keep that long-term perspective at the same time. Like, always be living in the present moment. That doesn't mean that you can't set goals. Like, sometimes when I talk about that, people are like, oh, well, I guess I shouldn't try to do anything. I guess I'm not going to work tomorrow. And it's like, no, you can live in the present, but still have goals that you're working towards in the present moment. Every step of the way, you're focused on that present moment, and it may not end up leading you to that specific goal that you want, but you will learn so much along the way, because at the end of the day, like, life is happening in each moment. So if you're constantly living in the moment, or living in the future, like you're in kindergarten, thinking about middle school, thinking about high school, thinking about what college you're going to go to, thinking about what job you're going to get, thinking about your next job, thinking about, your future family, thinking about retirement, thinking about what you're going to do in retirement. And then it's like, then you're fucking dead.
Yeah.
Life is always happening in the present moment. So it's awesome to have goals to give you some sort of direction, but it's only a direction. And it's not like that goal, when you reach it, it's like a split second that you're going to like feel amazing, but it's really understanding that journey is always what life is.
How important then, so I was going to sort of touch on it over, how important then are goals, but then also not for them to become like an unhealthy obsession? So, to always think about where you want to be, but not then to let you dictate everything you do. So how important is it to achieve that balance in life? To, yes, have those goals, but also make sure they don't become everything that your life is and everything that your mood and everything?
Yeah, definitely. I think realizing that reaching those goals are not going to bring you the happiness you think. People think that, they get this amazing job, they go to the best school, they make, $10 million, that like they've made it, but internally they're going to feel exactly like they did when they were poor as they do when they have $10 million, if they don't, progress as a human and as a person along the way. And I mean, personally, like when I think about my goals, I have certain goals for like social media that I keep in mind, like I do want to eventually hit certain follower numbers, but it's definitely not my focus. If anything, it's something I use in my morning manifestations to like really feel like I've already accomplished those goals, and how it it makes me feel, realizing that like, law of attraction, that's going to eventually my internal reality is going to match that external reality that I already believe to be true. Like, I have 500,000 followers on TikTok. Internally, I already know that I have 1 million followers. Like I truly believe that I have 1 million followers, and eventually like that will happen because I know it's going to. But in terms of like goals in my life, my only goal is basically to not have any regrets on my deathbed. And so it keeps things in perspective and kind of, it's like a shifting target. So if there's something I think I might regret on my deathbed, like I just try and do it as soon as I can. And it's like, all right, I'm not going to regret that anymore.
You mentioned earlier, well, just then actually, morning manifestations, and earlier about like a sort of solid morning routine, because like when you say if you don't go to the gym in the morning, you're not that likely to go in the afternoon, you can kind of put it off, that kind of thing. What would you say for people listening who potentially want to get into a good mindset during the day by being productive in the morning? What would you say is like a healthy sort of balanced morning routine that can sort of set you up for the day to be productive, have a good mindset, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I can talk about my morning routine.
That's perfect. That's perfect. That's perfect. That's perfect. Thank you.
But yeah, I think that waking up early is definitely one of the biggest keys for having a solid morning routine, because you allow yourself, the time in the day to do it. And for me, it's something that I wasn't a morning person. Like going through college, like I would sleep in as late as I could. I played baseball in college, so like, if we didn't have practice in the morning and I had class at 9 or 10, then I would sleep till right before class to get up, like put my clothes on, if I even ended up going to class. Not that but it happens sometimes. But when I started, like after school, I started to make these changes. I started meditating a little bit more, started getting into more spiritual type things and understanding how the mind works a little bit better. And I just wanted to get into a better routine. So I kind of forced myself this summer before I started working. I graduated in May 2018, started working in September at the job I'm still at now. And that summer, so I kind of had that summer off a little bit. And I was just home. And I wanted to get into being more of a morning person, so I just forced myself, even though I had nothing to do most days, except like a few things here and there. Like I would just force myself to get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and it was like I was then just felt good about waking up at that time, and it was almost like checking off that box, which would snowball into wanting to do more things. And then once I realized that I could get like most of the things I wanted to get done in the day before 9 a.m., it just kind of flipped the switch in my mind. So ever since then, I've pretty much gotten up early every day. And what I do is basically, like right now, for example, this morning, I got up, walked my dog, came back here, and went through sort of like my meditation morning routine. And what I do for that is I write down my manifestations, like things I believe, that have already happened, kind of using law of attraction. Like I start each one with, I am grateful and my heart is so warm now that I am present all the time. Like I am grateful and my heart is so warm now that I have 1 million followers on TikTok. I write those down. I go through each one and imagine it already happening. So like I literally imagine clicking on the TikTok app, going to my profile and seeing 1 million right there and feeling how good that feels, because for the most part, like feelings precede reality. And then I imagine that like I've already felt that, and now like I'm almost past that point. So it's almost like something that's happened in the past. So then it's like, now what do you do? Like now as a person, like I already believe I am that person who is present all the time, confident in everything that I do, has, $10 million in my bank account. Like now what do I do as that person? So it's like, if you want to become a different person, like you have to start living like you already have, basically become that person. So that's sort of the first part. I go through imagining each thing, and then I go through sort of like my specific meditation routine, which is a little breathing exercise. And then I go through, watch my breath a few times, just like breathing in through my nose, out through my mouth. And as thoughts come up, I just bring my attention back to my breath as often as I can. And then I go through my whole body, head to toe, just relax my whole body, really feel like that gravitational pull on it, and then go back up from my feet to my head, feel my whole body. It's almost like a vibrational feeling. Feel each individual body part. And then I go through some gratitude affirmations, just like think of a bunch of things I'm grateful for, even really basic things like having 2 arms and 2 legs, being able to see, being able to smell stuff, like very, very basic things that oftentimes we take for granted. And then I go through a scenario that I talked about earlier, just like imagining I'm old, thinking about something I may regret, and then opening my eyes, realizing that I'm only 26, like still pretty fucking young, have a lot of and it just feels really good. And it's like, all right, let's fucking go. And I'm like, there's
so much, like, there's the idea of discipline, there's obviously the manifestation, there's the idea of appreciating the little things in life, there's something to tackle. So, I mean, why do you do this manifestation then? Like, is it kind of an idea of like believing in yourself, that this is like, is it this idea of by thinking about it, it's going to happen, or is it by thinking about it, you're believing in yourself to make it happen? Is it that? Like, what is the idea of manifestation? And why does it help you?
That's a good question. It's actually something I don't know a ton about, but I've done it in the past, like for a couple months at a time here and there. And I just watched this movie on Netflix called The Secret. It's a pretty old movie, and I just posted about it also. And all the comments were like, yeah, welcome to like 2002 when that thing came out. Like, that thing's so old. Like TikTok comments are like kind of ruthless sometimes. Getting viral. It was just like a basic video of me saying like, you should go watch this movie. But I saw that movie, it kind of like rekindled my understanding of how powerful the law of attraction can be. And so like how I see it is basically you write these things down as if they've already happened. So your mind is a very powerful tool, and it basically wants to match the things you believe to the things that are already happening. And from what I've noticed, even since I started, getting back into the manifestations like 5 days ago, and 2 weeks before that on TikTok, like my views weren't super high on my videos. They were getting like a few thousand, some up to like 20,000, but like for the most part, none of them like spiked too much. And it's interesting because as soon as I started that, like since then, I've had a couple videos kind of blow up. And what I think that it is when you start writing things down, like I'm so grateful my heart's so warm now that I have 1 million followers on TikTok, like your subconscious starts churning out things that will help you get to that point and like match that external reality. So whatever it is you want to accomplish, you want $1 million in your bank account. You start writing that down every day, maybe you write it down 5 times a day, and it's like starts getting programmed into your subconscious. Your subconscious is going to start working for you and help you get to that point in whatever way that means. Maybe it's getting a new job, learning a new skill, like it's going to drive you towards whatever it thinks will help you reach that goal. I don't know if that's necessarily like the professional definition of manifesting, but that's how I felt it.
I was gonna say,
and I do definitely think it's had an impact. For sure.
Is that though kind of what it is, like kind of like how to improve stuff? Is it more the things that are kind of you can take these things but adjust them to how it will help you, but all because it helps someone else doesn't mean that it's going to help you, but you can adjust it to suit you. And then I think it's massive as well, this idea of like 2 ideas, this idea of discipline. And obviously to maintain motivation, but it's like you can set like when your revision schedule, like we have revision schedules, you say, get up at 10 and then start work by 11, and then you have lunch and you start work by 1. To be honest, that never really works out.
Yeah.
That never really happens to me. Like, I'm getting up at 10, but I won't start revision until 12.
Yeah.
So
it pushes it
how
back.
have you maintained discipline to get up at 6, to go to the gym, to walk the dog, to really make sure you do the goals when you said you would do them?
Yeah. I think at this point it's become such a normal part of my life. Like I've been doing it for a few years now regularly, that I know how good I feel after the fact. And sometimes thinking about when you're in certain situations and like maybe you're being lazy, like thinking about what's going to make your tomorrow's self more proud. You laying around on the couch or you getting this shit done, and keeping in mind, being old and not being able to do all the shit that you want to do, and like imagining being that old, that at least like kind of hypes me up to like do shit, because I know for a fact there's going to be a point in my life where I'm not able to do all these things, and eventually I'm going to be dead. I'm going to be a rotting corpse in the ground. So like just keeping all of those. Sometimes people are like, dude, that's so dark. Like you think about death so much. I literally think about it every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And doing that gives you so much more appreciation for life that it's I think very important.
Do you use the afterlife to motivate you then? So like kind of like you don't fear death, but you sort of welcome it to make sure that you are doing more and that you appreciate every single moment.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I mean, it comes with the acceptance of death, and people ask like, "Are you afraid of death?" And like, I don't know. I mean, kind of, because I like being alive. I like being able to experience this human form, but I don't know. Like, I think about it in the sense that I'm grateful that I'm not dead. I'm grateful that I have this time to experience right now, and that's sort of how I imagine it. It's not like a fear thing, so I have to get shit done. It's like a gratitude thing, and I get to get shit done.
Going off what Josh said before about, like, say for us now with like university timetables, revision timetables, we don't necessarily stick to it or get it done. Do you feel like there's a potential bit of leeway with young people to maybe not stick to those sort of plans? Like you say, obviously, like you're 26, sort of out of that education sort of system. Obviously, at university now, say we might be out on a midweek night, on a weekend, and you can't physically get up and have a productive day at 9 o'clock if you've been out the night before. Do you feel like potentially for the people watching this, if they are like in university or in school, there might be a sort of argument for you don't have to worry all about this now, because like you say at a high school yourself, you went through these things to learn them to then sort of help you now. Would you say it's more important to learn them in sort of mid to late 20s, 30s as you sort of really approach adulthood and sort of enjoy that period of being young and sort of learning your way through life?
Yeah. No, I definitely think like I had a good time in college. I was not into like that's fucking awesome that you guys have a podcast even. I didn't get into this stuff till I was 25. And I think that like realizing that when you have something that you're passionate about, like you're gonna want to do that more so than most things. So like when you're going through, and university isn't for everyone, like being in a classroom learning about things like honestly, there's nothing even in my normal like day-to-day job that I have in digital advertising, like there's nothing I do that I learned in school, like in a classroom at all. Like I probably learned more from being on my baseball team and like managing my time in that way and like building relationships through that. But I think, I don't think you should put too much pressure on yourself in college, but at the same time, it's like, it's never too early to start. And while you're in school, sometimes if you don't have a ton of other outside activities going on, if you can find something that you enjoy, like I'm guessing you guys with your podcast, like you're probably excited to do this, and this is something that you could see yourself doing after school, and that's then something that a lot of college kids day to day, they're just like probably being kind of lazy, and like I was like that in college. You're just like lounging around watching some movies with your buddies, like having some beers, going out at night, like being hungover till noon, like like people do at school. But so I wouldn't put too much pressure on yourself to like have things figured out either, because realizing how young you are, like how young I still am, like it's almost this balancing act of understanding that this time is limited, but at the same time, you have a lot of time. Like if you're 20 years old, you live to 80, which isn't even that old. You still have 3 more lifetimes to live. Like from 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80. Like you get 3. So the fact that people want kids to have shit figured out, or like know what they want to do, or know what they want their career to be when they're 22, graduating school, is like fucking insane, because most of the people who are probably expecting that don't have their shit figured out. They've just been working a lot longer, and half of them probably don't even like what they do. So
you mentioned there as well about the hobbies and having stuff to do, and you mentioned the baseball, that you did baseball, and then we obviously know you're a big gym goer because she talks about going to the gym on a morning. But how important would you say is having something like that, almost to keep you stable and to give you motivation? Because more often than not, you know, everyone says do something you love doing when you're older, and if it's a hobby, you're more likely to go out your way to do it. So how important is that in terms of getting your motivation going and actually making a start in a step in the right direction, so to say?
Yeah, I think it can be super beneficial, and I think it's not even that you have to you should feel any pressure to get that figured out or get something that you want to do, but it's if you just start trying things out and giving it a shot and realizing how fucking dope it is to be able to be a human. We're basically, I think about this sometimes, in a video game. The only difference between you being here where we are now and what might be a simulation, might not be, I don't know, is basically the internal dialogue that you have, those thoughts in your head, those worries, those fears. If you were in a video game, you probably wouldn't have all those worries and fears. You'd just be out there enjoying things. And so sometimes when I start getting worked up about stuff, I just like to think of that. Maybe we are in a simulation. Maybe I am just an avatar. And it's almost it's really not that different. So if you're able to shift your mindset a little bit like that, you may be able to just be a little bit more free with what you're doing and realize how cool it is just be able to walk around and interact with people and, have a podcast, communicate with people, create content, whatever it is that you enjoy. And then eventually that'll lead you down different paths and, you might really like something along the way.
So this sort of this idea of key to life, but would you say that it really is to maintain the happiness and to maintain kind of be your best you? Is it sort of kind of about simplifying life? You overthink everything. Is it sort of about appreciating the little things in life? The fact you can hear the wind in the trees, the birds, you see animals. But it's the film. Did you watch Soul? Did you watch the film Soul? The Disney film.
It's a great film.
And that was all about sort of just appreciating the little things and about that thing. He had this idea of this goal and he really wanted to achieve it and it's everything he wanted. And as soon as he got that, it was well, life still goes on. Yeah. I've got this goal, I've got my dream, but life still goes on. And basically what I'm trying to say is it really about sort of the little things, the fact that we can go out and have the freedom to go and have a conversation with our mates, to see our family.
Or even this, a Zoom call from America to England.
Exactly.
It's, we have the freedom to do what we want.
Would you say to get to kind of your happiness, it is kind of just appreciating the everyday things that we kind of just get swept away and we just kind of don't see?
Yeah, I think that perspective is incredibly powerful and helpful. And it's some people sometimes think that the little things, it's that's not that exciting. But if you flip it, so I think, yes, gratitude, especially for little things, is one of the biggest keys to happiness. And the more basic you can keep those things that you're grateful for, being able to go outside and feel the sun, being able to see the world, being able to, having 10 fingers and 10 toes or 8 fingers and 8 toes, if that's just all you got, just those basic things. Yeah. But then keeping that perspective and sometimes flipping it and imagining, similar to that scenario, imagining when you're old, imagining a scenario where you don't have some of those things, where you lost a leg. All of a sudden, whatever problems or shit you were dealing with in your life, it probably seems a lot less significant if you lost an entire leg or lost both your legs and you were in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. So imagining a scenario like that, sometimes I'll finish my meditation with something like that and I'll be there for with my eyes closed, imagining my life for 5 minutes like that. And then it's I open them, I look down, I'm holy shit, what was I so worried about today? That doesn't mean anything anymore.
How easy then was it? What were the challenges getting to this point? Because obviously we're sitting and we're saying about, this meditate, this manifestation, appreciating the little things, thinking I've got 10 fingers, 10 toes. But how hard was it for you to get to this point? And obviously you probably still want to improve on that. But kind of the challenges to get to and kind of you want to keep going. How did you keep going?
And also, what was the biggest factor in that? So what was the turning point that made that happen almost?
And how did you keep going?
Yeah, I don't know if there was. I think it was definitely something that was progressive. I think over time, once I started to realize how powerful it was, it became such a regular part of my life and something that whenever, because I still, get anxious, nervous, worried about shit like all the time. Like I was a little nervous getting on this podcast. Like I always, whenever I'm a guest, I'm like, am I going to be able to answer the questions well, like, helpful, like whatever. There's always like some sort of internal shit going on. But I think once I realized how powerful it is and how just like how different life would be if I didn't have some of these things that I was constantly taking for granted. So like I remember it a lot of times, and it just like makes you feel so much better. So in terms of like a shift or like a specific point, I don't know if it necessarily was, but I think it was like progressive understanding that, things aren't that serious. Like it's all going to end in nothingness at the end of the day. So like be grateful for the fact that out of like, the span of the universe, however many billions of years the universe has been around, I get this little blip for, most likely 80 to 100 years where I get to experience being human, and then, gonna die, and then it'll probably be similar to that for another couple billion years. Maybe I'll get reincarnated into something else. I don't know. I'm not banking on it. But like, being able to, take that step back and realize how incredible it is instead of being so like, caught up in the weeds of the day-to-day activities. But in terms of like a specific switch, I don't know if I necessarily have a great answer for that, or can even remember if there was one.
Is it this idea, so really, it just is a common theme, it's this idea of simplifying life, right? And actually, a life is simple. In the day, we're just one person in front of 8 billion in this small space of time going around on this massive, like, rock in this massive universe. And really, it is about just making the most of every day, because at the end of the day, I know this time seems a lot to us, but it's not really. So is it all about kind of just making life as simple as you can? And yes, but embracing this idea of being anxious, being nervous, being upset, because that's what makes us human, right? So it's all about simplifying life, but embracing when things go wrong and embracing the pain and the bad things in life, because that's what it means to be a person, right?
Yeah. I think it is. Like what we're doing here is just experiencing being a human. Like we are, I believe, the universal consciousness, like the universe itself, just experiencing itself as a human. Like we're all the same universal consciousness, just experiencing things through a different lens. So they're really, at the end of the day, like there's nothing you have to do. There's nothing you have to achieve, and just understanding that this is all just an experience, like to experience the positive emotions, to experience the negative emotions, to do your best not resist any of them. Like, life is like this ebb and flow, this squiggly line that there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. And the sooner you realize that, there are going to be downs, they are flat out inevitable, you can more quickly accept them. And by accepting them, acceptance in itself is a positive experience. So you begin that flow back up to a higher point. And I think the more you're able to just wrap your head around that concept, like the shallower the dips are and the higher the peaks are as you go along.
I think another concept that I saw on your TikTok that I really liked was the fact that we're, like you say, we're all like going through these emotions ourselves, is that what we're overthinking about potentially what other people think of us and stuff like that, realistically, they're not thinking of that because they've got their own problems to deal with themselves. Would you say that's the sort of way that people should be thinking about to sort of deal with overthinking and that kind of thing, is the fact that realistically people have their own problems as well?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a funny paradox how, like, I think, at least in my experience, I'm not in anyone else's mind or but from, understanding what my siblings, friends go through. Like, everyone's always like worried a little bit about what other people are thinking of them, thinking about how they're judging them, like what they think of what they're doing. But if everyone's doing that while simultaneously, like, when you're thinking about yourself and like going through your day to day, like you're worried about what everyone thinks of you, but you're only worried about yourself and your own life. You're not like, you write a to-do list for your day. You're not saying like, judge Sally's Instagram. It's like, no, as long as you want to get done.
I mean, it might be on there. I don't know. But
Things to them while simultaneously only worrying about themselves.
Yeah.
So, like, the worry of what everyone's thinking about you is just like an illusion because everyone else is doing the same shit.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of funny when you realize
that's a good way to put people's minds at
don't
rest and
care what
stuff.
they
Yeah.
think, stop giving a fuck what people think, but just for them to realize that like they're probably not thinking about you as much as you think. So just like at the end of the day, do what makes you happy and don't let them determine what you want to do.
I think, I've got, as we'll get into them, but there's a couple more things that just, especially for me, just the idea then of relationships, right? And the key, for me, I mean, like in my life, like people know, I lost my dad 3 years ago, and like my dad passed away 3 years ago. And for me, I think the one thing I've learned massively, especially, is to get through life, I think it's all about like relationships, and it's relationships with your family and relationships with your friends, and actually and that's where your happiness comes from. And you know what? And I've learned a lot more. I was always someone that wanted to be liked by everyone. I've learned a lot more. Actually, it doesn't really matter. You've got your close friends, and that's all that matters. So, how important would you say, from your experiences? Because I know mine, it's massively to have really strong relationships with your family, to have a really strong relationship with friends, and even you've still got a partner. But so like those sort of things. How important would you say it is to have those strong relationships?
Yeah, I think it's super important, and I don't think it's something necessarily that you ever want to force. I think for the most part, if you enjoy being with your family, then be with your family. It is a very important thing for you, and I think understanding that outside of those poor people who really, really have your best interest in mind, they're the people I want to hear what they have to say about things that I do. But outside of that, outside of my family and very close friends, I don't give a flying fuck what other people say about me, especially TikTok trolls with zero posts and not even profile pictures. I love those comments.
Oh, they're great. Yeah, they're great.
Just understanding, and I've made a couple of posts about this, how I'll put out a video, something that most of my videos, something that helps me that will probably help someone else, and I'll have back-to-back comments. One of them will be this is a horrible way to think, you're hurting people, this makes me so anxious, and then the next line will be thank you so much, this is amazing, you made my day hearing this. And it's so funny because I'm just putting out something that helps me, I'm glad as long as it helps one person, I'm happy putting it out. And I think just realizing that no matter what you do in life, people are going to both love you and hate you for literally that same exact thing. So at the end of the day, just do whatever the fuck you want to do. Do what makes you happy, and stop allowing what someone else's opinions about what you do determine that, because they have their own experience. The fact that they even push their beliefs or ideals onto you, thinking that that's the best thing to do, is, I think, kind of insane, because they get their own shit. Just do your own shit over there. Let me live mine.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's fine. And I just think, before we wrap things up, I think my last question, we kind of, you've said a lot about the afterlife and stuff like that. You imagine yourself in 100 years' time when you're 100. But I think say if you're on your deathbed. Let's say you're on your deathbed. I was on your deathbed. What are the things throughout your life that would have made you happy, and that sitting there, you would have put a smile on your face and made you think that I've lived a great life? What were the things for you? Are the things that would get you to that point and make you achieve that happiness when you are on your deathbed?
The thing now, going through that scenario now, obviously, regretting not creating content is no longer a thing that I'm going to regret, because I do it now. But I think it's just being present in my life as often as I can is something that I'm constantly working on. It's something I think I've gotten a lot better at, but it's still, there are times when I'm worrying about something or regretting something or thinking about other stuff while I'm doing other things. And I think if I'm on my deathbed, and I truly believe that I was extremely present in each moment of my life, in each thing that I was doing, not focusing too much on future expectations or worrying too much about something that happened previously, and living my life in each step of the journey fully to the best of my ability, I'll be happy.
Brilliant place.
It's a really nice
Thank
way
you
to
so
end
much
up.
for that, Andrew. That was very good. And hopefully
really nice way
we've
to end
helped
up.
someone who watched this. If we haven't, I'm going to leave in the description any helpline numbers in case you need them. If you ever need them for mental health awareness, I'll leave articles that we will read upon and make sure they're informative and everything like that.
You definitely helped out 3 people here anyway. You definitely helped 3 people today. Yeah, massively. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining. And this is actually episode 20 of the Us 3 podcast. We've done 20 episodes. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought it? Not me.
Not us. So yeah, thank you all for joining. And also, this could be the last one we do in this room.
Maybe.
We've definitely got one in the other room that we do it in, but this could be the last one. We potentially may have one more. Potentially, maybe 2. Okay, maybe 2. All right, potentially may have 2. But yes.
So obviously not.
So it could be one of the last. But yes, thank you all for joining. Make sure you like, subscribe, check out Andrew's TikToks. It will be in the description. And thank you and goodbye.